Okay, I'm honestly, seriously, we're not using this intro music for Neha anymore. This is the last time. Okay, we're gonna find something super cool and super Breath Yogi like. So apologies, Neha. That's just this is just it's just hard to find music anyway. So this is our exciting conclusion. We've been kind of talking for the last couple of days about your journey and your story. Cannot wait to kind of to bring this around the corner to where brain science is going and how we can help people. And have not had this much fun doing an interview in a long time. So thank you for the time and thank you for the energy. And particularly, thank you for the transparency and the honesty and openness. So, without further ado, Neha, let's get going. For the CXM experience, I'm Grad Khan, CXO at Sprinkler, and here we go. I can tell you, I have not had this interesting an interview on the CXM experience. So, I got married super young, and to my first girlfriend.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have as close to what would be normally thought of as an Indian marriage as anyone is out there, right? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
specifically arranged by my parents, so that's where it's different. But I was her first boyfriend, and then she was my first girlfriend.
Oh, high
First
school
holding hands,
sweetheart.
first everything. Yeah, yeah. Well, we're
Oh.
divorced now, so don't do aw shucks too much. But we did stay together for 35 years, so it did last a long time. But it's interesting how there is some power to that, right? Because it's hard to leave those things. But then there's also some, I think to a certain extent, sometimes things get taken for granted. And but I know what you mean around the PTSD. Like I kind of emerged from that experience with a ton of trigger points. And I've never been a super huge fan of triggers, and like I always thought that was a little bit like, oh, you're being triggered, blah blah blah. But it's amazing in my new relationship how something will happen that's reasonably innocuous, like not necessarily, and completely somewhat, I would say, mostly accidental or unintended by Rachel. She's not. There's nothing nefarious. But it will
Mm,
trigger a response
mm,
based on my past history, and shit gets crazy. I mean, it's just
mm.
like
Yeah.
it just, and it's tough, right?
Mm,
Because you've got all these layers of
mm,
stuff you've built up and this cruft you've built up over the years, and you got to get
mm,
through it somehow. And so
mm.
so how have you done that? So how have you left that behind? Because you've got a lot of layers there. How do you get past that? How do you make sure that doesn't get in your way?
And I mean, thanks for sharing that. And I
And
feel
nobody
you
knows that,
because
by the way. That's the first time I've ever talked about that. This is
I
definitely a
know.
deeper CXM experience than we normally have.
I
The good news is my ex-wife never listens to it, and my
know.
current girlfriend never listens to it either. So I can say
So we're
whatever I
safe.
want on this, and nobody's listening to it. Then I actually won't matter. So
Uh,
I'm good. So I could
oh.
talk at length about these things. But anyway, but so how do you get through it? Like, coach me up on that a little bit because I do find that I've been running into more triggers lately than I would expect, and they're irritating because you can't help but sort of reflexively think that, oh boy, here we go again. Like I remember I was verbalizing a couple weeks ago. I had to do something, and I was going through just a little experience, and I was sitting at my desk, doing a thing, and I said to myself, well, this feels familiar. Like like it's just like you
Yeah.
because you're replaying these old tapes, right? And so tell me, how do you manage that? Because you've got a lot of old tapes as well, and you're still reasonably close to the edges on those things.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if this is something I'm sure you also experience that you'll go into a situation, you know you're going to get triggered. You don't want to get triggered, but you'll get triggered and then you'll regret it later, right? So the answer is like a two-prong approach. Like first you have to understand that when this is happening, what's really happening is that the limbic brain, which is responsible, like the part of our brain which is responsible for our survival instinct, hijacks our prefrontal brain cortex, which is the part of the brain which is responsible for critical reasoning and stuff. So it's not in our hands, okay? It's the limbic brain, the
Hmm.
it just hijacks that functioning. So even though it used to happen to me even after years of a breathing, like 3 4 years. I knew I was gonna do this. I didn't want to do it, but then it would just take over. And it's because that part of our brain, which is responsible for involuntary functions to protect us, just hijacks the thinking brain. So, first of all, don't beat yourself up. This is how the brain is structured. When we beat ourselves up after doing something like that, it just strengthens that neural pathway. So, you have to just step back and be like, this is not the normal grad doing this. This is my instinctive, the brain is just hijacking my thinking brain. So that kind of like just helps you understand. And the second thing that helped was I doubled down on my breathwork practice and I went for this
Hmm.
21-day retreat. And I let
21
go.
day retreat. Wow, that
It was
sounds
a 21
amazing.
day. It was actually my
Wow.
teacher training, like the training I did to become the facilitator for these workshops. And I came back from their training. I was like, yeah, whatever. We were doing practices. So now, today, I know from neuroscience that the brain is neuroplastic, right? So, what that means is the brain, even though you're kind of like aging, the earlier belief that even neuroscientists had that the brain stops developing after 20 or so. But that's not true. You can form new neural pathways. So these tools now today show that when you are doing more advanced breathwork type of techniques, the body relax very deeply. So like when we do the veterans workshops, they have severe PTSD, they form new associations with the triggering memories. So while they would be, if they're in a battlefield and something's going exploding, the body's tense. But now when they're breathing, the body gets relaxed and that memory comes up. Now the brain forms a new association. So the next time they find themselves in a situation that could trigger that, that earlier neural pathway doesn't get activated. Okay, so to answer the question, I highly recommend, and I see this on a daily basis, there's certain breath-based tools available that I highly recommend that you should start, experiment with,
Hmm.
at least give it a go, and you will
I feel
see the
like I need to
difference.
spend some more time with you.
Absolutely.
I think yeah, we got to spend some more time together. So
Yeah.
and even as I unpack all this stuff, I'm like, I'm more messed up than I thought I was.
We're all more messed up than we thought we were.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me tell you my
Yeah.
two trip philosophy. I don't know if
Yes.
this it seems so ridiculous now based on this conversation, which has been so amazing. But let me tell you my two trip philosophy. See what you think of it, and then I want to talk to you about someone named Dr. Michael Gervais, who's someone I've gotten to know pretty well. He's not a guru, but he's got some pretty interesting ideas. And then and let's talk about kind of what's next. But let me do two trips. So I developed a philosophy it's probably 20 years ago, right? Kind of around the time that I had kids. So because like before you have kids, life is pretty idyllic. Like, I mean, it's like life's pretty nice when you don't have kids, right? So when kids come along, like it gets really hard. And it's hard in the relationship, it's hard in everything. And everything gets harder and there's a lot more to do. And people sometimes say, "Well, I've got a dog or I've got a cat." It's like having a kid, and I'm like, "No, it's not.
No.
Uh,
Okay.
uh, it's
Mm.
wonderful. I have a dog. I love my dog. My dog's amazing. It's nothing like having a kid." So, and so what I found was that I was running into a situation where I was getting very frustrated because I would go to do something like, say, upgrade my 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 mobile plan, or go buy something at the store, or go get something fixed, or get something delivered, or just like all the different things you have to do to make life happen every day, and it would never happen correctly the first time. It always was never quite right. At some point, I was realizing that almost everything that I was doing, not everything, but almost everything that I was doing, seemed to require two trips. or 2 calls or 2 somethings. You go and you'll go to get your thing or something renewed, and you'd forgotten your license or you'd forgotten your passport, or they needed some documentation you didn't have, and you have to come back with it. And it's like there's always in the second trip, and I was getting really crazy with these second trips. They were driving me buff fucking nanas. Okay, like I was losing my mind. Okay, because like everything just took way longer than it should, and then I realized that if I redefined the time span, and if I redefine the task as it should take 2 trips, okay, then suddenly, if it took 1 trip, which occasionally happened, it would be like bonus. And if it took 3 trips, which sometimes happened, it would be like the 3 trippers kind of balanced out the 1 trippers. And most of the time it was 2 trips. And so it was very funny. So I've been teaching this philosophy to Rachel, my girlfriend. And so I've been teaching this philosophy to Rachel, and she started getting into it because she was equally frustrated all the time, surrounded by incompetence, all that kind of stuff. And so we had some new furniture delivered today. And I said, how did it go? And because I've been sort of in my office all day in meetings. And she said, 2 trips. That was her answer. 2 trips. Because they had accidentally damaged the credenza. And so they had to go back and fix it and blah, 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 blah. It's like so like irritating and not necessary. If they just wrapped the thing in a blanket, it would have been fine. But no, they had to do it slapdash, right? So anyway, but 2 trips. And so she was a little frustrated because it would have been nice to have everything for tonight because we have a dinner party tonight, and it would have been nice to have it all together. But she's like, 2 trips. That's kind of how it works. It's the 2-trip world we live in. And so that's my 2-trip philosophy. It's not very spiritual, but it's very relaxing.
No, it isn't. It's like you just, when you're expecting something, then you don't get thrown off when it happens, right? And it's a pleasant
It's like,
surprise
oh,
if it
this is a
doesn't.
2-tripper. Oh, no problem. Okay, I got it.
Right,
Okay,
it's a
no
good
problems.
philosophy.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a good philosophy. If it kind of
sorry.
Yeah.
So Dr. Michael Gervais. So
Okay.
he runs a podcast called Finding Mastery. And he's got a site called findingmastery.net. And he is actually the high performance psychologist who works with Seattle Seahawks, the U.S. Olympic team, these sort of like these high stakes surfers, who surf these like 60-foot waves. He worked with Alex Baumgartner, who did that dive from the balloon up in the stratosphere. All sorts of different sort of athletes and tennis players, Broadway performers, all sorts of people. He's an amazing psychologist that gets underneath people. And when I met him, we met him when he was working for Pete Carroll, who's the coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
And he and Pete were just about to start a sort of corporate coaching program. So I was on a team with led by Allison Watson, who was COO for the U.S. subsidiary at Microsoft. And Allison and myself and people like Margaret Arakawa and Julie Stanford and Carl Noakes and a bunch of other people. It was the Rogues Gallery of great people. We all were part of this experiment. I remember Alyssa, there's one really good friend of mine named Alyssa, and Alyssa she hated Dr. Gervais because Dr. Gervais had this weird, uncanny ability to see underneath you, right? And so you'd be like, "Oh, I'm all good, and life is good, and I don't need to worry about things, and all this kind of stuff." And he would be like, "This is what's really going on," or "This is what I really see." And he could tell when people were hiding things. I feel like that if you were to sort of meet him, he would probably see some of your underlying issues. And so Alyssa Taylor, she's the CVP of Dynamics and Business Applications at Microsoft. Alyssa always just couldn't stand it because he could see something in her that she never shared with any of us. So who knows what it is, but he could see something in her that she did not want seen. Right. Anyway, so if I could get you and Dr. Gervais
that would be fun.
somehow connected, we might have to like put those like when they do the when they watch a nuclear explosion, they put those really deeply tinted sunglasses on, with like the sides, we might need to like wear something like that to see the
And
two
see
of you
what
may
happens.
cause, yes, it might be like, the vision and the vision kind of meeting together in
Like what
WandaVision.
happens
But
to the
anyway,
force field?
yeah, like it's like, whoa, everybody buckle up. So, but I really do think it would be super powerful. Anyway, so we've got just a couple minutes left. And so what we're going to do, so today we're going to wrap on this interview. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your openness and your story and how much I've enjoyed this. This has been totally amazing. And then what we're going to do is next time we're going to do a breathing exercise for our team, and then we'll go through that. And so think about how you'd want to prep for that. But so let
Sure.
me just like we've kind of done the hero's journey. I mean, I guess I assume you're divorced now, right? Because
Yes.
when you found out
Yes.
your husband had other interests. Okay, so and is he okay? Has he moved on, or what's going on with his life?
Yeah, yeah. I guess he was also like we've been divorced for more than 2 years, and we've never once tried to talk to each other. So it should just say that how
Really?
happy both of us are
Wow.
that we've gone. Like
Wow.
he
I
was a
talk to my
nice,
ex-wife like every day almost. Okay. All right.
no, he's a
Interesting. All
nice
right.
guy. He's,
Okay.
he's a nice guy.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So you moved on. You're in separate worlds. Okay. And so you're kind of happily single, living in North Carolina of all places.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what's your next chapter? What's coming up for you? What do you think the universe has in store for you now?
I think so the divorce and the business and all of that happened around the same time, right? So that was another kind of like a very intense. What I wanted to do was to go back to my known world of corporate world where I was doing strategic marketing for medical devices. But then I was like, no, I'm here. And I feel like now I'm really aligned to my purpose, and my purpose is to bridge this gap. Like, I feel like I need to take these ancient healing tools and make them accessible to people. There's a fundamental gap in which they're not being translated to the mainstream. And I'm here. That's my job, is to bridge this gap. And that's the journey that I'm here on. And like Raji and I are developing this happier program, and it's evolving every day.
That's very
And
cool. I'm very excited about
yeah,
that.
yeah. So more and more, I didn't know, I didn't have the vision of how that was gonna pan out. And that's what like Raji bought in when me and him got to spend like 5 days on that retreat. Like, and I figured out, he helped me see that I wanted to do this, but had no idea how I was gonna do it. And he, from the business entrepreneurial side, knew the business side of things, right? And slowly but surely, like now we finished the pilot for level 1. We had amazing results. We're in level 2 where we're leaving. Like, I'm really excited about it because we're using the latest DNA technology to figure out like everything from your sleep chronotype to what kind of diet is best suited for you. And now we're combining them with more advanced tools of the authentic yoga and authentic ayurveda. So we're really pulling from the best of the ancient technology and packaging it and using the latest neuroscience developments and science developments and putting it together in this program. So one, surely but slowly, moving along, and I'm getting more confident every day, but one step at a time.
That's
That's where
amazing.
we
That's
are.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
very, very inspiring. I mean, this is I've had a particularly long week and I have surgery tomorrow morning. So this has
Um,
been this I think this week is like a shit sandwich for me. So I get started rough. It's been not bad in the middle, but the tomorrow's going to be horrible. But this has been a highlight, and I got to thank you for being my guest today. And it's just been amazing listening to your story. And so we are scheduled for about a week or two from now. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to get right into exercises and start teaching people how to make their
yeah.
lives better through breathing
Yeah.
with the breath yogi. So thank you so much, Neha.
Thank you. And I hope like it wasn't too much information, like I love
It
talking.
was not too much. It was a perfect. It was great. It
Thank
was
you, and
great.
good luck with your surgery. I'm sure it's gonna go really well.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be amazing. Nothing like having a knife in your face. All right, great. All right, everybody. For the CXM experience, I'm Grad Khan, and I will see you next time.